how far can you really get? I mean, really get, copying someone else's brand, especially if you're not even doing an exact copy. Today, we're going to dive deep into a fascinating true story that shows exactly what can happen when a brand isn't, well, properly protected. We're talking about the Carol's Daughter trademark saga. Our mission here is to pull out those critical insights, about brand identity, about some pretty deceptive practices, and the undeniable power of legal protection, all from this real-world case that, honestly, might surprise you. Okay, so let's kick things off. Carol's Daughter. Many of you probably know the name, right? It's a hugely successful beauty brand, and the origin story is pretty inspiring, actually. Lisa Price started it right from her kitchen, her home kitchen, back in 1993. Talk about starting small. But she grew it steadily, opened the first actual storefront in '99. And then, the big break, really a major appearance on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 2002. And this wasn't just like a drugstore brand Carol's Daughter was selling in higher-end stores. Think Sephora.
Yeah, and that's really key here. Carol's Daughter wasn't just some random brand. They'd built up a serious reputation, a loyal following. And that success, that strong identity, that's exactly what made them, well, a target.
A target, exactly.
It's a classic situation, really. A strong brand is great, but it can also be a vulnerability if you don't defend it properly.
And that brings us right to the problem. By 2008, things got complicated. A competitor pops up called Carol's Express. Now, get this, the deception here is pretty bold. According to the sources, like court documents, Carol's Express hired a consultant. And during talks to get distribution into CVS stores, this consultant basically led the CVS distributor to believe that both brands, Carol's Express and Carol's Daughter, were owned and run by the same person, Lisa Price.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, Carol's Daughter is in Sephora, these high-end places, right? Not usually drugstores like CVS back then. So how did Carol's Express even try to, smooth over that contradiction?
Well, that's where the clever narrative comes in. It wasn't just a name similarity. The consultant apparently claimed Carol's Express was just the retail expression of Carol's Daughter, sort of a diffusion line, maybe.
Retail expression, okay.
Yeah. And somehow, maybe because it sounded plausible enough, or maybe they just weren't paying close enough attention, the CVS distributor bought it, approved the deal, completely unaware it was totally false. What's fascinating here, I think, is how the copying didn't have to be identical. It didn't have to be a perfect match to work.
Right. Daughter versus Express. They sound different.
They do, but apparently close enough, especially when you add in that deceptive story. It was enough to fool a pretty sophisticated CVS distributor. It just goes to show copycats aren't always just making, cheap knockoffs. Sometimes they're smarter than that. They use these subtle similarities, these tricky narratives.
So Carol's Daughter finds out about this audacious move.
Mm-hmm.
What's their first stop? Did they do the standard thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The standard first move. In July 2008, they sent a cease-and-desist letter straight to Carol's Express, the legal warning shot.
Okay, standard procedure.
Yeah.
And what happened? Did Carol's Express back down?
Not even close. They just ignored it, completely ignored the letter, kept pushing forward with the CVS deal, and next thing you know, their products, the Carol's Express products, are actually hitting the shelves in CVS stores.
Wow. So the cease and desist didn't really stop them at all.
No. And that really raises an important question, doesn't it? About the limits of just sending a letter. Think about it. If Carol's Daughter had stopped right there after sending the letter, what would have happened?
Well, the Carol Express stuff would still be in CVS, I guess.
Exactly. Still there, confusing customers probably. People might buy it thinking it's a real deal or maybe a cheaper version from the same company. And that inevitably starts to chip away at the value, the reputation of the original higher-end Carol's Daughter brand.
Devaluing everything they built.
Right. So the crucial takeaway here, and the sources really emphasize this, is being prepared to, go all the way. Litigation, actually suing someone. It sounds expensive, and it can be. But the sources point out that cost often pales in comparison to the cost of rescuing your brand from an aggressive and successful lookalike.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes that first warning shot just isn't enough.
Sometimes it's just the beginning.
Okay, so Carol's Daughter decides they need to do more than just send a letter.
Yeah.
And this is where they had a huge, almost like a secret weapon, right? They had a federally registered trademark. Carol's Express did not. That turned out to be absolutely decisive. So they sued Carol's Express for trademark infringement. What did having that registration actually do for them in court?
Right. So stepping back for just a second, let's connect this to the bigger picture for everyone listening. That registration, getting your trademark officially registered with the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trademark Office, is immensely important.
Okay. Why exactly?
Because it's not just like a certificate you hang on the wall. It gives you the legal right, the exclusive legal right, to own and enforce that trademark across the whole country.
Nationwide.
Exclusive rights. Got it. So think about the alternative. If you don't have that registration and someone starts using a similar name or logo, it often turns into this messy he said, she said battle. You're trying to prove you used it first or that your use is more established, and it can be really difficult and expensive to prove.
A real uphill battle.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But with that federal registration, the game changes. You are automatically presumed to be the rightful owner of that trademark under the law.
Ah, so the burden of proof shifts.
Exactly. It puts you in a much, much stronger legal position right from the start. It's a powerful shield.
And for Carol's daughter, how did it play out?
Well, because they had that registration, they successfully went to court and got an order.
In order to do what?
An order forcing Carol's Express to remove all those infringing products from the CVS stores. And not just remove them, destroy them.
Destroyed. Wow, that's a clear win.
A very clear win. And it really shows, the real-world teeth that a registered trademark gives you. That's the consequence of not having your brand properly protected versus having that federal registration.
Okay, so this whole saga, this deep dive into Carol's daughter, what does it all mean for you, the listener? Whether you're building a business, maybe an online brand, maybe just developing an idea.
Yeah, there are some really clear, practical lessons here. I think there are 3 main takeaways we should really hammer home.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, take copycats seriously. Even when the copying isn't, identical, the Carol's Express case is perfect proof. Even subtle similarities, especially when they're combined with a bit of clever deception, they can fool big players like CVS. They can really damage your reputation. It's not just about blatant counterfeits.
Right. Subtlety can be just as dangerous.
Yeah.
What's number 2?
Second, be prepared to go all the way. That cease and desist letter, often it's just step 1. Protecting your brand might mean you need to take further, more significant legal action. You have to be willing to see it through to stop lasting damage and the devaluation of what you've built. Think of it as an investment, not just an expense.
An investment in your brand's future.
Okay.
And the third takeaway?
And third, and honestly, this is probably the most critical one, make sure your trademark is registered, federally registered with the USPTO. That registration is your ultimate shield. It gives you that legal presumption of ownership, the power to enforce your rights nationwide. Without it, well, your ability to fight back effectively is seriously weakened. It's just much, much harder.
Those are incredibly powerful points, and they really apply across the board, don't they? Not just giant beauty brands, but anyone trying to build something unique, protect their name, their business, their idea in this, let's face it, very crowded world. So the Carol's Daughter Deep Dive really illustrates it. Proactive brand protection, especially getting that federal trademark registration, it's not just some legal formality you check off a list. It's a vital investment, a critical investment in the long-term health and value of whatever it is you're creating.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave people with, think beyond just trademarks for a second. What other ways, maybe less obvious ways, might your creative work or your professional identity be vulnerable to imitation? And how does the kind of vigilance we saw from Carol's daughter maybe encourage us all to think a bit more broadly about protecting our unique contributions in the world?
Something definitely worth thinking about. That wraps up our deep dive for today. Thanks so much for joining us as we explored the fascinating world of brand protection through the Carol's Daughter story. We'll catch you on the next one.